Hi. Would you still love me if I was a 4-mana 1/3 worm? Kira.
Hi, I'm a 4-mana sorcery that wins the game, but only in Two-Headed Giant. Maya.
And we're talking about Edge of Eternities Early Access.
We went to space.
We went to space, and it was great. A huge thank you to Wizards of the Coast for inviting us back for another early access event. It was so much fun. They changed the format, they changed the style of early access up a little bit this time, but it didn't make it any less enjoyable in my opinion. I had a really fantastic time. I got to play Draft, I played Limited a lot, and I played some Standard.
And you got to play on your own account, which was so cool.
Yes, that was one of the ways in which they changed things up this time around. There wasn't a separate client, you just got to play on Arena using your own account. And that was really fun. It also meant that it was even easier to recognize creators that I got to play with, which was super exciting. I got to play with Krim. I played a game against the Asian Avenger Krim. I played against Swayze. I played against Power Dragon. I played against Legend VD. And everything was so wonderful. So a huge thank you to Wizards of the Coast for continuing to give us that opportunity and to allow us to bring the knowledge back to you.
Early access is such an exciting time because we get to really get our hands on the new cards and we get to see how they interact with each other, but also with the context of the rest of the format. It's so cool. It's so amazing. And Kira, you actually played quite a bit of Standard. You had a couple hour section. So what did you actually get a chance to play?
I played a couple different decks. I played a Orzhov, black-white sacrifice tokens list. I played Teamer Storm Splitter combo. I played a mono-green ramp list. I played a red-green Agrul terminal velocity deck. And I played Esper Pixie. It was really exciting. I had a lot of fun with these decks. I tried to play what I would consider, quote-unquote, a little bit of everything. I didn't want to just play competitively. I didn't want to just grab Esper Pixie and prove to myself that this is such a good deck and it's absolutely fantastic and it's been made better by the mana base, which, spoiler alert, it absolutely has. But I wanted to also play with decks that had more new cards. And what was really exciting about this early access is that it was also open to Pro Tour players. And so a lot of people who were prepping and testing for Pro Tour were also playing decks. And so there was this really interesting mix of, janky Edge of Eternities combo decks and really heavy-hitting Standard meta decks. And you kind of got a bit of a wash of everything. It was really fun. I had a fantastic time, and I loved the decks that I played.
Early access, it is such a fun time. It is kind of focused, at least in my mind, on the exploration and trying to work out what decks in the format are the most fun. So what did you have the most fun with?
I had the most fun with mono green ramp.
Of course you did.
Very predictably, I had the most fun with mono green ramp. This was a mono green ramp deck that, as with several mono green ramp decks that we've seen since Tarkir Dragonstorm, have the ultimate goal of ramping into Ugin, Eye of the Storm. And turns out Ugin's just a good card to cast. Ugin, like many other cards that you like to say, almost basically reads win the game. Without explicitly saying win the game. And so this was a deck. This was also this was a poo-poo deck.
A poo-poo UFO deck?
This is a poo-poo UFO deck. And poo-poo UFO is a 2-mana 0/4 artifact that has 2 abilities. It has a tap ability that says you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. And its second ability is a 2-mana ability that says this creature's power becomes equal to the number of towns you control. And so it's a really sneaky little ramp piece. Poo-Poo UFO being an 0/4 is a fantastic stat block, even, pre-rotation and post-rotation as well. It avoids your Grim Baubles, your Nowhere to Runs, your Lightning Strikes, your Lightning Helixes. 4 toughness is just good in general. Doesn't matter that's an 0/4 and blocking, means your opponent still gets to keep their creature. The 0/4 stat is fantastic. Usually you can absorb a bit of extra damage. And then, again, there's a bit of cheeky interaction where, because you don't have to tap to block, which is what a lot of very new Magic players don't cotton onto very quickly. A lot of times when I'm teaching someone how to play Magic and you teach them to tap to attack, when they block, they'll intuitively go, and then I'll tap to block. It's no, you don't worry. You don't have to tap your creatures to block. And so what's good is you can declare a block, and as long as it's not summoning sick, you then can tap it, and put a land onto the battlefield. So you get everything.
Seems pretty good.
This deck plays every kind of ramp you can imagine. This deck plays 4 Glimpse the Core, 4 Poo-Poo UFO, a single copy of the Iron Crag, 4 Spelunking, 4 Map the Frontier, 4 Hedron Archive. But it's because the top end, you're going to lose your mind at this top end, right? So predictably,
hit me.
4 Ugin Eye of the Storm.
Sure.
4 Anti-Causal Vestige.
Okay.
4 Sire of 7 Deaths.
Sure.
3 Extinguisher Battleship.
That's so many.
It was not hard to get there. And let me tell you something, and the reason I say this deck was really fun to play is because, so your mana base as well, really interesting mana base. You had, this I think was a really interesting choice, and I'm not sure why exactly, Temple of Abandon, Temple of Plenty, Temple of Malady, Temple of Mystery are all in there for scrying. But interesting choice because you're not playing any color other than green, right? So it's an interesting choice to have that in the mana base.
Why would you not just play the Surveil lands? Moving right along.
Genuinely couldn't tell you unless it's maybe a budget-friendly reason, right?
Sure.
Like it's a budget consideration.
Yeah.
Or if you'd prefer to scry rather than surveil to then keep the cards in the deck, right? Like that could be a consideration as well. 4 Adventurers in, 4 Arid Archway, 4 Conduit Pylon. So you're doing a lot of surveilling. Like Arid Archway and Conduit Pylons both surveil. So you are surveilling, so I wonder if it's just not to overdo it on the surveil. Scrying is also good. And then 6 Forest and 2 Xanarkand, which is the Adventureland from Final Fantasy. Now, this deck was fantastic. The ability to manipulate your top deck through surveilling, thinning out your deck practically every turn. The way you had to sequence these things was really interesting and actually required a bit of extra thought because the other thing is, you only have 1 creature that's less than 6 mana. And sure, Anti-Causal Vestige is also a 4 mana creature. You still have to get there. And the issue in this deck with warping an Anti-Causal Vestige for 4, if you only have 4 lands out, the only thing you can potentially hit is Spelunking, Iron Crag, and Poo-Poo UFO. And that's,
or a land.
Or a land, it's true. But that's not really what you want to be doing in this potentially very aggressive, if you're playing against an aggressive deck and you do nothing for 5 turns, you still have to survive, right? But what I will say is I found that this deck, once it's stabilized, unstoppable. Because it turns out just sticking a Sire of 7 Deaths is good. Sticking an Ugin is good. And so the top end of this ramp deck is so unbelievably heavy. I didn't even cast an Extinguisher Battleship in any of my games with this deck. And it was still, I still got there. I would frequently get down to, 4 or 5 life, slam an Ugin, win 3 turns later. It's a it was a very fun deck. I had a really good time with it. And I don't know what else to say. I love mono green ramp. I found the deck really fun and really just, I was really excited by it.
I'm curious to see whether in the slightly longer term, the Surveil lands and the Scry lands are actually the way to go because it does actually fix a problem that ramp has where if you draw one side of your deck but not the other, you will lose the game. Ramp needs ramp spells and things to ramp into, and having the selection to find that is really important. 16 Scrylands is a lot, but I guess if all of your ramp pieces are putting any land into play or a land from your hand into play, and with the benefit of Spelunking, putting them into play untapped, maybe it's the new meta. I would be interested to see. So beyond that, and because I am very, very spiky, what felt like the most competitive deck to you? Because I have many a thought of brewing, but I kind of want to I want to get a feel for what felt the most oppressive to you.
Predictably, it was the Esper Pixie deck.
Who could imagine?
Who could have seen this coming?
What poo-poo?
I have previously on the pod decried Esper Pixie as opposed to your beloved Orzhov Pixie because the mana base for Esper Pixie used to be terrible. But with the printing of Watery Grave and Godless Shrine, Esper Pixie, there's no reason not to play blue at this point. And especially with the addition of Cryogen Relic, you should absolutely be playing blue in your Esper Pixie deck at this point. There are some here and there opinions as to how aggressive Orzhov Pixie should be versus how controlling, like, oppressive as opposed to aggressive, right? But overall, this deck was a nightmare. So in early access, what you do when you enter into, you put your token into the little arena machine and you enter into a run and you are awarded 3 losses. You can have up to 3 losses with a deck before you are automatically resigned, and you are trying to get to 7 wins. I got to 5 wins with no problem and resigned before I got to 7 because I felt awful at what I was doing to my opponents. And also, not for nothing, this would have been, like, time-wise around the world, it was late afternoon for me. It would have been very, very early in the morning in the States. And I have a feeling the queues for standard best of 1 were kind of drying up because I went back to back against a creator known as Swayze, ran him over and felt terrible. Like I watch a lot of his videos. He's a very, very cool brewer. Just like semi-truck over him. And then I went back to back against another creator, Power Dragon. And again, I felt terrible. Because in both games, the second game I tried to sandbag and tried to not do my thing. And I just got to a point where I was like, I'm just going to take care of myself. Like, I'm trying to let you do your thing. But, they were obviously playing more for the angle of content, trying a ton of new Edge of Eternities cards and making all these, really awesome videos that are going to be coming out over the next few weeks or so. And I was doing a viewer request to play a highly competitive deck. And unfortunately...
Hi, Jennifer Rose.
Jennifer Rose, and also a shout out to Morgan as well. Unfortunately, my competitive meta deck was just running over, the more fun combo decks. And I just felt bad. I couldn't get behind because... early access for creators, especially, not saying so much for the Pro Tour players who are actively trying to make sure their deck is highly competitive. For creators, they're looking to get content. They're looking to show you really cool combos that exist in the upcoming set. And so I just was like, this, it got to a point where I was feeling bad. I wasn't having fun. I didn't want to be sitting there, steamrolling. I wanted to play a more competitive game. I wanted to have a competitive match. And because I wasn't getting that, and because I had a very strong feeling that my opponents were also not having fun, and this feeling was confirmed, I resigned from Esper Pixie, excuse me. Force of Habit to say Esper Pixie. But the deck actually hasn't changed that much, dare I say. There is the inclusion of Tragic Trajectory, and there is the inclusion of Cryogen Relic, and there is, of course, Godless Shrine and Watery Grave. Deck's amazing. This deck is absolutely fantastic. It does all of the classic things that Esper Pixie is trying to do. And interestingly now, this is the Esper Pixie sans This Town Ain't Big Enough, because This Town Ain't Big Enough prior to its banning was pretty consequential in the Esper Pixie shell.
And don't forget Hopeless Nightmare.
Oh my gosh, how could I forget Hopeless Night? Genuinely, the fact that 2 very key cards to this archetype were, removed, banned, and the deck is still that good. Holy moly. I'm so unbelievably impressed. Of course, Hopeless Nightmare has been replaced by Tiny Bones Joins Up, which is a very similar effect. Not the same, but similar. And This Town Ain't Big Enough, here and there, quote unquote, replaced by the bouncing effects of Nurturing Pixie, Sun Pearl Karen, and Fear of Isolation. Fear of Isolation has found its way back kind of into the deck as another way to bounce. This is also a classic Kaito Bane of Nightmares deck. Oh my gosh. This deck is awesome. I really like this deck. Esper as a color wedge is going to have, is it a wedge or a shard?
It is a shard.
It's a shard. Okay. I gotta be honest with you, I can never remember. Because it's shards of Alara, right? Yeah. Well, no. I know that much, but I never remember what the shards are.
Well,
because wedges is cons, right?
yes.
Oh, just that. Okay. Well, now I just feel like a numpty, don't I?
Yeah, it's Alara and Khans of Tarkir. Come on, Kira, you've only been playing Magic for 5 years. How do you not know about the set that's 15 years old?
Yeah, boo on me. And it's also not as though Tarkir did not just happen a couple months ago.
Bah.
Esper as a shard of 3 colors is going to have a moment. And whether that's through Esper Pixie or through some other Esper control type element, the colors are really well situated with Godless Shrine and Watery Grave.
I, for one, welcome our Pixie Overlords.
Oh, what a shock that you're so excited about Pixie doing well. But
now I have to buy Kaidos.
Oh, well, if only someone had a bunch of Kaidos lying around.
Do you have more than 4?
Not more than 4, but the deck only runs 3.
I will buy at least one off you.
You can pry my Kaitos from my cold, dead monogreen hands.
I see.
No, but
you're soaking up the supply so less people can play Pixie.
No.
Understandable. Wow.
Ultimately, Esper Pixie felt the most competitive. I really liked Esper Pixie. I have a feeling we're going to see it come back in a bit of a show of force.
So the beauty of Magic is that it is at minimum a 2-player game.
Generally, yeah, you can't really play Magic by yourself.
Which means while you got to play with some really interesting decks, you also got to see some really some curious, some powerful, some interesting decks on the other side of the battlefield. So what did you come across?
There were 2 decks that really, really caught my mind and also terrified me. The first of which was Mono White Angels. And Mono White Angels has been a very fringe tier 3, tier 4 deck for a little while. Pretty much ever since Giada got printed back into Foundations, Angels has had a little peppering on the side of maybe Mono White Angels, methinks. And the printing of Lightstall Inquisitor into Standard made this deck a lot better and a lot scarier. Lightstall Inquisitor is insane. It is a 1-mana angel wizard with vigilance. When this creature enters, each opponent exiles a card from their hand and may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Each spell cast this way costs 1 generic more to cast. Each land played this way enters tapped.
And it's a 2/1.
It's a 2/1. This card is awesome. And this card is kind of what Giada needed. Giada was kind of lacking that 1-mana, effective 1-mana spot, especially because Lay Down Arms has rotated. And so as a mono white deck, it floundered a little bit in that spot of not really having a good turn 1 play. This is the most insane turn 1 play for a mono white Angels deck to immediately stacks you. And it's fantastic. And the core of the deck revolves around, in my opinion, Lightstall Inquisitor and Giada. And it plays all of the other good Angels as well. It is also an incidental life gain deck, so it's really difficult to deal with. And with Giada giving counters to things equal to the number of Angels that are already in play, the number of times, I'm staring across the board, Lightstall Inquisitor, Giada, and then an Exemplar of Light comes down, and it's like a 6/6, upsetting. But it was really, really interesting. And I'm really curious to see how the deck can be elevated and how the deck can be improved. Because the archetype feels really interesting, and Angels as a typal deck hasn't had a moment since Giada, basically. And so now that we have Giada and we have better Angels, big thumbs up. Really curious to see where this deck goes. The other deck is a mono green deck. But but different to the...
Sorry, this is an audio medium. I just rolled my eyes.
The other mono green deck was not the ramp deck style that I was playing. This was a mono green counters deck using Ouroboros as the main punchy engine. Ouroboros is a 4-mana 1/3 plant worm. that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is this creature's power. This is being played. I played this against Legend VD, and I was terrified the entire time. I saw like Legend pop up, and I was like, oh no. I have a feeling this is Legend VD, and I'm about to die. And I was absolutely correct. It was a mono-green ramp-ish deck in the realms that it was playing ostensibly 4 copies of Llanowar Elves, but it was an Innkeeper's Talent deck. And it was horrific. And up until the point that the Ouroboros came down, I was 50-50 on what was really happening. It was, Llanowar Elves into Innkeeper's Talent to leveling up Innkeeper's Talent to, I believe he also played another Hydra. It wasn't Mossborn Hydra. I believe it was Warden of the Grove, the Endure Hydra. And I was like, okay, counters. Yeah, I can see what's happening. And then it was a fully leveled up Innkeeper's Talent where it would double the number of counters. And I was sitting here going like, yeah, okay, interesting. I'm still really not afraid of a 2/2 Llanowar Elves, all things considered. And then the Ouroboros came down, and on the beginning of combat, stacked triggers in such a way that it was, Innkeeper's Talent trigger putting counters on something, double the counters, on every. It worked out in such a way that it was like, 2 counters became 4 counters on this, which because of Innkeeper's Talent became 8 counters, and then you put 8 +1/+1 counters on everything else, which became 16 because of Innkeeper's Talent. And then I was looking at like a 38 Llanowar Elves, and I was like, now I'm scared. And it was insane. It happened out of nowhere. I remember, like I have the stream, footage of me just jaw on the floor, just staring at creatures that, 30-30, 38-38, 41-41. Just, my goodness, I've never seen such big green creatures.
So big, much counter.
And it was to a point, and we were at a point I was not coming back from this no matter what. So it was kind of one of those moments like, tap swing, and I just slowly click no blocks and let myself, fall into the ether. It was insane. It was a really, really cool deck, and it makes me want to play it. Like, I want to play a version of this mono green counters deck. Absolutely.
I mean, look, it sounds like you had a lot of fun. How did you feel about the event and early access specifically, just sort of overall? What are your thoughts about New Standard?
It was really fun. I love participating in early access, and I'm so incredibly grateful that we get to do this with each set that's coming out. What's so interesting since we played the version of Standard that is now Standard Legal, which is post-rotation. There's not a lot of removal in this format, or at least not a lot of good removal that is worth playing. Obviously, we got some common and uncommon, black removal spells, but there's just not the same level of cut down, go for the throat, anoint with affliction, Gix's command. There's just not that level of densely saturated, highly efficient, good removal in the format. And so everyone kind of got to, quote unquote, do their thing. You weren't coming up against a lot of black, mono black decks that were just, I cut down your thing, I go for the throat your thing, I anoint with affliction your thing, I Liliana you, and then I bloodletter of Aklazatsi. There just wasn't that kind of deck running around. And so it was super interesting because what that also meant is we saw way more combo decks and decks that were running a lot of new Edge of Eternities card because they weren't oppressed by the removal of ye old Standard format. So, and you've commented on this before that we're about to see, as you've said, like a quote unquote worse Standard format. We don't have the same kind of removal. It is worse on rate. We're adjusting into the new skin, of Standard. We've stripped back some of the flesh and we need to grow it back out a little bit into this new, Frankenstein format because we've shrunk it down. We've gotten rid of a lot of consequential pieces and a lot of consequential parts. And so that made this early access really cool and really incredible because you got to do more fun stuff. People were comboing off, we're getting Ouroboroded for 30 counters, It was really, really fun. Additionally, the mana bases for several colors of decks have improved substantially. The Shocklands are also obviously really good for standard. As we discussed, Godless Shrine and Watery Grave for Esper Pixie, Sacred Foundry for the Boros decks. You're going to have really efficient and good mana bases because the Shocks also turn on the Verges. They are typed, similar to the Surveils. So we are going to enter into a good era of really good, really efficient mana, and that's very important for these very strong using Esper Pixie as an example. That's really important for that deck. Being able to hit the stride on curve with the right colors available is incredibly important for a 3-color deck like Esper. And so it also means there's a world in which we're going to see, Jund do well because we have Stomping Ground and Blood Crypt. And that would be amazing. Maya's got her mouth hanging open, That would be a really fantastic, improvement to the format overall. I love 3-color decks. I think 3-color decks tend to be more powerful because you have you have access to all of the good things in the colors that you're playing. So I'm really excited. This was a really wonderful event. We got to play with some fantastic creators. We got to try some new and interesting decks. The cards are fantastic. The set is incredible. I cannot sing the praises for Edge of Eternities enough. I was already over the moon, and then getting to play with the cards. Yes, it's over the moon. Yes. Just making little finger guns. Yes, it was I don't know what else to say. Other than I'm swooning, I am laying back in my fainting couch. I'm so happy. It was a really wonderful event. I've just got a big smile on my face. It was really fantastic. A huge thank you to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this episode. A reminder to all Standard players and all Magic players that Standard Play Season rewards are coming to your participating Australia and New Zealand WPN stores starting July 25th. Participate in 4 eligible events to receive exclusive Edge of Eternities rewards, including a station counter and ID card holder. Redeem your rewards from July 25th until September 18th, available on a first-come, first-served basis while supplies last. Now prepare to blast off.
With all that said, that is all we have for you today. We look forward to seeing you again next week. New episodes release on Mondays at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And until then, you can keep track of all our releases at Raise MTG on both Instagram and Blue Sky. You can find Kira on the same platforms at kirababira.jpg and myself at Maya MTG. A big thank you to the State Library of Victoria for the ongoing use of their space. And until next week, remember, your atoms will serve my ambitions in a much more useful form.